Cocktail Evangelist Jennifer here from Make Muddle, again with our good friend Elizabeth Flauto from Elizabeth Millinery, and we are doing an event with her on April the 27th from 12 to 4 upstairs at Copper and Kings in their Alexander bar. And we want to talk today just a little bit about process. So we went to school together, we went to college together, and we come from a theater program that has that's very process driven. And we were taught how to do that very painfully sometimes about how that goes. But I wanted to talk a little bit. So for Making Muddle, when we start a cocktail, typically it's a variation of a theme. So we will say, okay, well, we're going to start with a Manhattan base, for example, and we know that it takes these, this many ounces of this and this many ounces of this. But if we wanted to change the flavor profile, we'd go sideways a little and add a different ingredient, maybe in that same ratio. So talk to us about how does your process work?
I mean, I think it's very similar. You start with maybe even a traditional and recognizable shape, like this is a fedora block. It's also a cowboy hat block. They are very similar. So I blocked this straw on it just to check it out, and I loved this straw on it, and I loved the big brim about it, and I thought, oh, this is such a pretty women's cowboy hat shape. It's very delicate. It's the great broad brim, this shiny straw. And I personally am very inspired by Ms. Dolly Parton, as our Making Muddle, I know.
She is a national treasure. She is.
And so this one, actually, we're sort of going a little bit backwards because the cocktail hasn't been invented
yet. It has not.
But I just fell in love with this hat shape. And until further notice, I'm calling it Butterflies and Rhinestones.
Yes.
And it has, these are going to be fluffy and curly feathers. Which I love, sort of deepens that creaminess. I feel like there's champagne in this, but I don't know. I don't know what else goes with it.
I think so, because when Brent saw the hat, he said that's a chamomile infused immature brandy, and I was like, yes, it is. Delicious. And we love things topped with bubbles, so I feel like that. I'm sure that will happen. I love the texture. The texture is really like what levels it up, I think.
Yeah, I think so too. And so like I also want to add this flower, which sort of brings it up a little bit lighter, and it's got a velvet and a silk component, and so those things sort of blend really beautifully. And then you start adding notes of brightness or a little bit of pop or a little contrast to make everything really come to life. So,
and that happens exactly in cocktails too. There are so many times that we will say, that needs a tiny bit of citrus in it, or that needs a different bitters. How do we deepen that flavor and make it something different?
Right, exactly. So if I move the flower and I put in a little layer of a green velvet, everything comes to life more. Everything gets sort of excited by each other. And then I just
these
think
are so fun.
Hilarious.
I love them so much.
I love them too. They're outrageous and huge and festive, and I can't wait until they're sparkly.
Oh my gosh! So are you going to bedazzle these?
I'm going to bedazzle these.
Yeah, this is going to be brilliant. I can't wait to see it.
Bedazzle these, and I'm not sure if they're going to sit up in the feathers or what. We're sort of still working out the details, still seeing,
just playing,
how to playing, tasting, how to put it all together. Is this the way? Does it feel like this? Does it taste like this?
And we were talking a little earlier about one of your first productions that you had done, and you said that did not look the way the second one did. And I think that's a good point about process is that failure is a critical step of creating successful creations of any kind, whether it's a cocktail or a hat or a book or whatever it is, and that you have to do that to say, well, that was miserable and did not work, and we won't do that again. However, we will do these few things that will take us to the next one.
You have to be ready to pour it down the drain and try again.
Do you know how many drain pours? Do you know how many drain pours? You're like, God, that's awful. I can't even drink that. That's terrible. Yeah.
Well, and that's been a lot of this particular process, because each one of these is a one-off. They're very individual. I've never made anything like any of these before, and so I'm sort of pulling from my previous experience in hat making to make really a whole new idea for this line, which I think really suits very well. Really matches
It
very
absolutely
well.
does. Yeah, this
It
has been
pairs
a
very well with
total
Make
ball
Muddle.
to do this.
Yeah.
And that whole idea of how does this feel,
Mhm.
which I think is part of where cocktail culture is moving, is what am I drinking when I'm doing X, Y, and Z? You know, I'm drinking a mint julep when I'm at the Derby, or a bourbon slush. I'm drinking mojitos at the beach.
Yeah,
I'm drinking
absolutely.
chamomile infused immature brandy cocktails when we're, you know,
Poolside.
poolside. That's exactly right. Oh my gosh, or in the garden, or wherever, you know.
Well, and I loved when you came in yesterday and saw the Applejack old-fashioned hat, and you said, that's a go-to-market hat.
It is a go-to-market hat. That's exactly it is, and that vintage gingham, and it's just stunning. I can't wait. All right, well, guys, please come and see us in these gorgeous hats and taste some yummy cocktails with us on April the 27th from 12 to 4 upstairs at Copper and Kings. Be sure to check all of us out on our social media. We are on Instagram, YouTube, Facebook. Elizabeth Flauto is at Millenizabeth, and we will post her her Instagram handle in the comments. Thanks so much. Cheers, y'all.